A young boy endures a brutal beating from a priest, the physical assault only ceasing when the school bell finally rings. But instead of cowering, he taunts the man with defiant arrogance. "That's a shame, father, I was just starting to get warm." This defiant soul is Jim, the school's star basketball player, a celebrated athlete scouted by colleges, with a future so bright it's blinding. But a chance encounter introduces him to heroin, and from that moment on, his life spirals into a bottomless abyss. The warm rush of the drug is a siren's call, pulling him into a dreamscape, a vibrant sea of flowers from which he cannot escape. But after the fleeting moments of physical bliss, all that remains is desperate, soul-tearing pain. This is the story from a Leonardo DiCaprio film, released nearly 30 years ago. Based on a harrowing true story, it's a tale of how a young man loses his will in the depths of addiction, only to find his way back through the long road to redemption. Jim, the rebellious teenager, has 3 like-minded friends. The 4 of them constantly skip class, finding joy in tormenting others, their wild youth sprawling across the city streets. 3 of them are members of New York's best high school basketball team. At this point, Jim's eyes are clear, his spirit full of energy. He truly has a future in the sport. The coach has a soft spot for him, even inviting him to his home on several occasions. The invitations are veiled, but Jim knows the man's true intentions, yet he never outright refuses. On the court, Jim's performance electrifies the crowd. He sees himself as a panther, dominating the game, every shot a perfect swish. Meanwhile, their short friend, Pedro, uses the distraction of the game to sneak into the opponent's locker room. With practiced skill, he cleans out their valuables. After the match, the group hits a nearby diner, but the owners of the stolen goods quickly track them down. They've been in this situation countless times. Returning the items is never an option. Arguments and brawls are the usual outcome. That night, as they're about to split the money, a disheveled woman offers herself for just $15, only to be met with their cruel mockery. Defeated, she silently walks away. Jim has a habit of writing, keeping a basketball diary. Amidst entries about the game and his life are poems and his deepest thoughts. One day, Jim's benefactor appears. He meets a black player on the court who challenges him to a one-on-one. This guy is the real deal, sinking a long-range shot that ignites Jim's competitive fire. The player, with his superior physique, scores several more points, but Jim refuses to back down, answering with a barrage of his own. Just then, Jim's friends arrive, lost in the intense game. Jim doesn't notice his friend Mickey sneakily reading his diary. In it, he finds an entry about the group getting high together. "A pleasant bell rings in my ear, a dim light floats before my eyes. Give it back, Mickey. I imagine I'm rowing on a black river, but the boat keeps drifting backward. The clouds in the sky seem to have feelings. What the hell is this? Give it back." Mickey, though a bit eccentric, still respects Jim. The group has another close friend, Bobby, who is in the hospital with leukemia. That night, they plan to sneak the bedridden Bobby out for one last wild adventure. Jim and Bobby have known each other since they were 3, attended the same school, and played on the same team. Bobby was Jim's personal commentator. Everything Jim wrote, he shared with him. The kids shoot BB guns and slingshot the sun. The light falls like a brilliant waterfall. "I just want to stay pure like this forever." That purity is the innocent desire hidden deep in Jim's heart, but as a rebellious, reckless teenager, he constantly acts against it. Then comes the fateful day Jim's life takes a turn. His friend Neutron takes him to a high-end apartment and introduces him to a beautiful girl. From that day on, Jim is hooked on heroin. His writing continues, but the world around him has completely changed. His best friend Bobby dies suddenly, without warning. It's the first time Jim has faced death so closely. Though they are the same age, Bobby was skeletal and withered, as if he'd aged decades. Of the 4 friends, only Jim cannot accept his passing. The other 3 laugh and joke, sharing fond memories of Bobby as if death were nothing serious. Jim scolds them for never visiting Bobby, but to them, death is simply inevitable. Mickey brings a basketball, believing the past should be left behind, that living in the present is all that matters. He is slowly maturing. The rain seems to linger on the treetops. One day it will rule the world. Rain is wonderful. It washes away the oppressive gloom and cleanses the dirt from the streets, so we can dance. The rain does indeed wash away the gloom in Jim's heart, and from then on, he sinks deeper into the satisfying feeling of self-destruction. His condition worsens. What mother wants to see her son fall so far? But her desperate pleas are just noise to him. You never stop, do you? You just keep nagging. What the hell do you know? What did you say to me? Go clean the toilets. We all have our jobs. When you're done, you can dispose of me too. Don't talk like that. What is wrong with you? At first, Jim told himself it was just a small, controllable habit, but that small habit was devouring his life. Whenever the cravings hit, his body would revolt, his physiological functions in chaos, making it impossible not to go back. A voice in his head always whispered, "Just one more time, then I'll quit." One day, while making a deal on school grounds, Jim is caught by the priest, who already despised him and now has the perfect excuse to punish him. That afternoon on the court, the high begins to fade. Jim asks the coach for a bathroom break, planning to shoot up another dose. His frequent trips make the coach misunderstand, thinking Jim is sending him a secret signal. The coach, who has long desired him, follows him into the bathroom, knowing exactly what Jim needs right now. But just as he's about to make his move, Jim stops him. "Relax. I was wrong, okay? Let's just pretend this never happened. We can go back to how things were, right? Right? Sure. Take this. It's money." Jim chose to hold his ground. He tried countless times to quit his small habit, but by now, His mind and body were completely addicted to that magical feeling. In his dream world, he could do anything, breaking all barriers, the darkest parts of him magnified to their extreme. Before a big game, Pedro sneaks in some pills. Jim and Mickey plan to use them as a pre-game stimulant. But this time, Neutron surprisingly refuses to join them. "You need to hide that trash before Coach Switzer gets in here. What's with the attitude?" Mickey scoffs. "Get lost, you hypocrite." Neutron waits for them to leave before gently pleading with Jim. "I hope you don't keep destroying your future." Falling further. But Jim sees the sincere advice as a lecture. "Listen, Jim, I'm really proud of you." Jim knows Neutron is right, and his fateful turning point arrives today. The strange pills are incredibly potent, leaving Jim and Mickey completely unable to play. Just then, the priest arrives with the police. Pedro, sensing trouble, makes a quick exit. Jim is at the free throw line, but his mind is shot, and he misses. He then collapses on the court. The priest has their locker searched, but luckily, Pedro took the evidence with him, saving them. Still, the priest isn't done. He places Jim and Mickey on probation. The coach makes things worse, demanding they leave the team. "You can't kick me off, Switzer." "Why not?" "Because I quit." Neutron regrets Jim's decision. But Jim doesn't just quit the team. He drops out of school. Mickey follows his lead. The priest, without hesitation, approves their request. From that day, Jim's life is completely derailed. His mother tries to reason with him, not wanting to see him lost. But Jim won't listen. He decides to leave home. "I don't understand why you can't just watch me destroy myself. You will never see me again. Remember that. Don't say that, Jim. Don't say that." Jim abandons all his past achievements. He throws away not only the basketball career that once made him proud but his entire life. Jim thinks that with money, he can hold his head high. Led by Mickey, the three of them steal a car, a simple delivery for $1,500, but the three high-as-a-kite kids screw it up. When Mickey's brother comes for the car, he finds it's been towed by the police. The drugs made them bold but also rotted their brains. The affair ends with Mickey getting a life-threatening beating. The three continue to sink into the pleasure of the high at a drug den. That squalid place is their paradise. Jim calls it their all-star headquarters. Seeing the addicts there is a team of champions. His mother still prays to God, asking for a little love for Jim, but God seems to ignore her, letting him spiral. A woman comes looking for her cut of the profits. But in this world, it's every man for himself. "You look alright, Jimmy," she says, "but who's gonna pick up your corpse?" That night, the trio targets a Jewish bakery, but inside, there's nothing of value besides some candy and ice cream, and the gun in Mickey's hand will cost him dearly. They struggle to open the cash register, only to find a few loose coins. As they're about to leave, Pedro, lost in a drug-induced haze, completely ignores their signal to retreat. Mickey points the gun at him, but it has no effect. Jim tackles Mickey, then punches Pedro to the ground. The wail of police sirens finally makes Mickey retreat. As they run, Pedro sobers up, calling for Jim to help him, but the police are at the door. Jim has no choice but to abandon him and flee. Pedro is arrested. The remaining two, pale-faced, find their way to a bar. There, Jim sees a familiar face on TV. It's Neutron, being interviewed on the Today Show for the National High School Basketball Tournament, the very one they once had a shot at. Mickey doesn't care, but Jim stares, his eyes filled with regret. Neutron, radiant on the screen, talks about his dream of getting a scholarship, while Jim and Mickey are writhing from withdrawal. If Jim hadn't gotten into drugs, perhaps he would have been the one on TV, giving that thank you speech. But now, he's just a decaying soul watching from afar. He sees his angelic mother, the one who loved and protected him, now struggling to cope with a life of pressure, and he can only watch, powerless. Jim sneaks back to the high-end apartment where Neutron first took him, hoping to find the girl for help, but she treats their past as a joke, pretending not to know the strange beggar standing before her. Wrecked, physically and mentally, Jim stumbles into a bar. A drug deal he was part of goes bad, and a buyer comes looking for his money back. Jim is beaten senseless. While unconscious, he dreams. He sees himself burying the spirited boy he once was on the basketball court. His inspiration to write is gone. He lies curled up in the cold night, waiting for death. But the person who comes is his savior, the black player he once competed against. He takes Jim home and reads his entire story in the basketball diary. When Jim wakes up, he demands his diary back. There's nothing to it. The man says, "Why should I thank you? Because you almost froze to death out there." But Jim only cares about what's in the man's pocket. The source of his joy has vanished. Reggie pulls out the stash, and Jim instantly goes limp, begging for it back. When Reggie doesn't respond, Jim turns to threats. "I'll kill you, Reggie. Give it back to me." Now, Jim's body is completely depleted. He's so thin he looks like a paper skeleton. Look at yourself. Take a good look. In the mirror is a gaunt, skeletal face he barely recognizes. Jim completely breaks down. "It's okay, Reggie," he sobs. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone once did it for me. I just want to pass on that kindness." From that day on, Reggie stands guard outside the door, helping Jim detox. When the withdrawal hits, Jim feels like he's being dragged to hell by demons. His skin becomes hypersensitive. Every breeze a razor blade. It feels like thousands of tiny insects are gnawing at his bones. The physical pain is matched by an unbearable mental torment. He begs Reggie for a fix, but to pull him from the abyss, Reggie must remain firm. A few days later, Jim's condition improves significantly. Reggie, feeling more at ease, prepares to go back to work. He tells Jim to write in his diary if the cravings return, then leaves, locking the door behind him. But not long after, the addiction comes roaring back. Jim ransacks Reggie's apartment for drugs, turning the room upside down. Finally, in a locked cabinet, he finds Reggie's stash. And just like that, Jim throws away his chance at a new life. He wanders the streets for who knows how long until he runs into the woman who once offered herself for money. She now looks sober and radiant, clearly having escaped her dark past. Jim asks her for some money but is met with a contemptuous look. She scoops up a handful of loose change, throws it on the ground, and laughs at him. She didn't just throw coins. She threw away Jim's last shred of dignity. He turns and curses at her. But the words of an addict no longer have the power to hurt a woman who has pulled herself from the mud. In the end, Jim still picks up the coins. For money, he still bows his head. He has betrayed the purity he once believed in, choosing to kill his own soul and become a true living corpse. The hateful face of the coach appears in his mind, mocking him. You're nothing more than this. That night, Jim and Mickey go to buy from a Spanish dealer, but it turns out to be a ripoff. Sensing trouble, the dealer bolts. They chase him to a tenement building. The man climbs to the roof. Mickey threatens him, demanding the money back. The dealer gives a slight push, but the panicked man stumbles and falls from the roof, plummeting 6 stories to his death. Realizing there's no way out, Mickey abandons Jim and runs downstairs to escape. But the crowd below won't let him go. Mickey is subdued until the police arrive and arrest him. Jim, still on the roof, luckily escapes. With nowhere else to go, he runs to his mother's house. Through the peephole, she sees her collapsing son. She locks the deadbolt before speaking to him through the chained door. Jim begs for money. $5. 20 would be better. But of course, she refuses. Jim tries every trick in the book. Mom, you gotta give me some money. Can you just hold my hand? I'll be good. Mom, please, give me the money. Stop it. Jim, I can't give it to you. Why are you doing this to me? I'm your son. I don't have the money. Don't treat me like this. Please, just a little money. Rejected. Jim falls into despair. Inside, his mother calls the police to report an intruder while fumbling in her purse for cash. Jim, tormented by withdrawal, hurls insults and curses through the door. Hearing his venomous words, his mother's heart breaks. In his agony, Jim alternates between screaming and pleading. Finally, she makes the hardest choice, letting the police take her son away. Jim is sentenced to 6 months in prison for multiple offenses. During that time, he endures the painful process of detox once again. Even though drugs are easier to get in prison, Jim is determined to start over and never touch them again. The diary becomes his emotional anchor, and his inspiration to write slowly returns. 6 months later, Jim is released. As he walks down the street, a familiar voice calls out. It's Pedro, looking haggard. He tells Jim that Mickey is facing 5 to 15 years in prison. Pedro has brought some good stuff to celebrate Jim's release. But this is not the old Jim. I can't anymore. It's good stuff. You know, I've got things to do. Why don't you come with me and see? I can't. I have to go now. You understand, right? You get me. Take care of yourself, kid. See you around. Jim doesn't know what the future holds for them. He turns and walks through a set of iron gates. There, he begins to tell his story. We were street kids, you know. We were out on the streets since we were really young, like 13. We thought we had it all under control, that we'd never get hooked. But life rarely goes as planned. I'm living proof of that. In the end, you can only see it all as a matinee, a performance shrouded in darkness. The darkness of Jim's life finally gives way to the light of dawn. Reggie, invited by Jim, arrives, genuinely happy for him. Jim has escaped the mire and returned to a normal life. Only this time, he is completely changed. The clarity has returned to his eyes, but now it's fortified with a hardened resolve. And here, the film ends.